and who to get it from, and then having a discussion about next steps and assignments. No, just go to slide 4, which is, I think is become more and more clear and important as we remember what the purpose of our group is, and that's to obtain our understanding of the ACSI survey results. So we need to keep those results in the forefront of our minds. And for feedback about the monitoring changes, which you've been briefed on for the last 3 or 4 meetings, and quite a lot of the specifics there. And then finally, to figure out a good communication plan to let people know throughout the network what this is all about. So today we're going to start on kind of figuring out about the focus groups, which will obviously lead to our being able to put together a document that learn from the focus groups. Accomplished to date. Obviously, we've reviewed the ACSI survey data and all the comments. Have all of that. And then we reviewed the current procedures, the processes, and tools that are either being used now or are about to be used, both from the pre all the way to the post-on-site work in terms of corrective action and TNTA. So we did the prioritization assessment tool, the document request list, the uniform monitoring tools, which include the financial assessment and the program assessment. We looked at state assessment report template. You looked at the procedures for corrective action and training and technical assistance follow-up. And then we looked at all the cycles and the timelines within those cycles. Remembering that this is an attempt to have a unified grant monitoring process throughout OCS. Quite a lot in terms of things. So next steps. This is proposing. Some of you may have some other thoughts or something missed. But really, out of all of that stuff that we've briefed you with, we wanted you to have the clear big picture and all the details. We need to determine what we want to learn and find out, and probably prioritize that. We may want to ask questions about every single thing you've learned, so we have to figure out what it is we really want to find out. We discuss and decide on the number of focus groups and type of participants for each. Develop the questions and the scripts and a template for taking notes. Decide on roles. Figure out the logistics in terms of when and setting all that up. And conducting the focus groups, then discussing what we learned, and then writing up the observations. So I'm hoping we'll get through steps 1 and 2 in terms of figuring out what we want to learn and what kind of focus groups we want to have. So let's leap right into the discussion, unless anybody has, before we leap into the discussion. Any questions, cons, concerns, anything anyone wants to add at this point before we go to discussion? Okay, so let's head to discussion. And I had asked all of you to be thinking about been briefed on, and therefore what do we want to learn from the grant. So here's my 4 questions, and we'll go one by one. What do we want to learn? What are the priority topics? How many focus groups? And what grantees do we want to get the feedback from? What criteria should we use to decide? So start with what do we want to learn from the grantees. I'm going to open that up to you all, and I want to keep in mind both the ACSI results and products that we briefed you on, and it may be helpful for you to think about what you'd be most interested in commenting on. If you were in a focus group, what is it you'd want to about? And if we could cover 3 topics, what might be the main topics you'd want to cover? So let's open it up to you all. What is it we need to learn? What is it we need to talk about with the other grantees?
I got a question to start.
Yeah.
I was looking at the monitoring group plan that was set at the first meeting, specifically the expected deliverables. I just curious on that because once it asked us to put a document from the focus groups that get information from them about the current procedures, processes, and tools, but it has in there about the proposed monitoring procedure, processes, and tools. The agencies aren't going to see any of the stuff that you presented to us over the last few weeks, are they?
Well, I don't know. I don't know why they wouldn't. We may very well be able to show them if it hasn't already been used. I mean, some things they maybe have seen, but if they haven't, to be able to comment on it, we could show them. Like we could show them, here's what we're thinking about using. What's your reaction to it? So yes,
sorry,
obviously, ask
this is
information. Alicia, no problem. We're just beginning to have the discussion about what do we want to learn from the grantees in terms of the focus groups. Is your question, Greg?
Yeah. So, in addition to learning or getting information and feedback from the agencies about what they've already seen and what's already out there, we may be trying to get information from them about the proposed information as well.
Correct, because that would sort of be a build on to the survey. So we heard this from you all, example, so we heard this from you all, grantees, that you had concerns about, for instance, the timeliness of getting the reports back. So we tried to put together a template that would expedite some of that. What do you about that? Does this make sense to you, this kind of template? If you got that, would this be helpful? That would be one type of thing that would build on what we heard in the survey and then also what we've done in response. So we want to both get more in-depth about what was in the survey, because obviously when they give make a comment, it's only, you know, a paragraph at most. So we want to delve more into that. But more importantly, we want to find out if what we're proposing sort of meets the concerns. Other questions like that? So we're sort of clear what we want to do and figure, yeah, that's good enough. So what is it you think we want to pursue? What are the topics? What do we want to learn? What is it we need to hear from these folks about?
This is Greg again. I did go through the ACSI scores a few days ago and the comments again, and the process, you know, scores were pretty nice. I mean, 73 for relevance of procedures and 71 for usefulness of visits, and those were up significantly from the last time that it was administered. Really, when they talked about comments about the process, there were some that ACE pointed out that they just wanted to make sure that the process was clear, transparent, and that they got communications timely. Maybe we'll find out some more specifics about what they're thinking on that. But really, the two areas I think we want to focus on more, at least my opinion, is the timeliness. And also the forms. It seemed like they definitely wanted the monitoring tools that OCS is using well ahead of time, and also comments that they said states should have those. They should always be available so states know. I think questions around this and OCS is going to use and availability in that are, I think, important.
Okay. If we were to show them, for instance, monitoring tool, the uniform monitoring tools, and said, here's the tools that are being used. How look, would these be something you'd do in advance? Those kinds of questions is what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Okay.
In my mind, the focus should be on the areas of the ACSI that were scored the lowest, and those were
clarity, transparency,
and timeliness. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So if you talk about clarity and timeliness, you might also be getting into the report template. If you report that followed this template, would that help with the clarity? Would that help with right?
Right.
Okay. All right. Good. Thoughts?
Can I go back to one more? I guess I should have asked this question when you asked for questions. So, purpose in this group, though, is the report that we would write related to the focus group. So it would be getting information on whether they like the direction of where it would be, but also their thoughts on monitoring. Also, I mean, because you might want to ask them, like, what do they consider the purpose of monitoring? So you out pieces and say, here's kind of the piece of that, and then if you looked at the actual elements, then you'd say, okay, yes, the primary purposes of it covered in these elements.
You could, yes, we can put that in the mix in terms of that might be one way to look at it, to make sure that everybody's on the same page about purpose. We know we want to get more into some detail, so we wouldn't want to too big picture for too much of it, but I think it can't hurt to start with purpose. I always start with goals. What's the goal? So, yep, I agree.
Hey, this is Chris. Can you hear me?
Not really. You're really getting a lot of feedback.
Oh, can you hear me now? Better?
Not really.
Well, I'll try again. I'll try to. Well, I guess I'll email, but maybe the assessment criteria they might want to weigh in on.
Chris, we can't really hear you. Chris, I can't really hear you.
Okay.
Poor car, obviously. She's probably on some freeway. Probably shouldn't be talking to us anyway. Around the road, that's scary. Oh, thoughts then. So you said let's talk about the purpose a little bit and then ask if whether these pieces, so maybe it's part of the cycle, do these fit? Do they make the purpose or is anything missing? And they wake us all the way to the end where we're talking corrective action and then the TNTA. So trying to connect up the monitoring and the TNTA. Other thoughts anybody has?
Can you hear me now? Okay. What about, do you think the state could be interested in knowing more about how they're selected for monitoring, the assessment that's done prior to the monitoring?
Okay, so the question is, yes, I'm sure they would be interested, but we're trying to get an idea of giving them information. We're not doing a webinar. We're doing focus groups where we're trying to get information from them about our impressions about something. So, and that might be fine, but what is it we would want to be learning from them about the assessment?
I would be curious to weigh in on what the states would think would be the most important components, the criteria when NASCSP selects us. Or,
okay.
So we could give OCS good information on, if we have sub-grantees that are in trouble. Just have that discussion on what we think would be a good criteria for them to select us for monitoring.
So if we were able to present the assessment tool and say, this is what the criteria that's now used, does this make sense? And what?
Yeah.
All right, gotcha. All right, thoughts? Does anyone think it would be useful, and it may not be, to query them about the time frames in terms of all the different cycles? Here are the time frames for pre-monitoring, the 30 days, the days. Here's when expect to get reports back, and then here's the time frames for corrective action and all of that. Does that matter enough to ask in this issue?
Yeah, I would lump that in with the timeliness of reports and getting feedback. Yes.
The time frame. Okay.
You definitely agree, but you know the timeliness that is really most critical to talk about is once you've been selected for a monitoring, the time period from that moment to the on-site visit and what happens there.
Okay, pre-monitoring, so it includes
Because
the pre-monitoring, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
pre-monitoring, it's between that, yep, and then getting the report and the whole corrective action. So there's probably 3 significant time frames that people care about, right?
That's, yes.
All right. Anything else? You've probably the main things. Go ahead.
Possibly what's being asked for in the pre-monitoring versus the on-site, whether that's appropriate of what we requested in pre-monitoring as opposed to on-site.
Okay, so talking about the document request list?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. All right. So we could also give them that and say, does this make sense? Okay. What else? Anything else? We move along and something else may pop up. This is, cut in stone, but it sounds like what we're talking about is the priority assessment. I shouldn't say starting with, but if I'm in these cycles. So part of it's the priority assessment, a criteria that's used and whether that makes sense, what recommendations they might have. The document request list, what's asked in advance, is what happens on site. Then the monitoring tools, the financial and the program are the thing that makes it useful to want in advance. The report template, will this help with clarity, timeliness, and the whole question of the time frames for all the cycles, particularly pre-monitoring between selection and on-site, getting the report out, and then the corrective action. I think that's what you've all just said. Is that?
Yeah. One more thought when you were saying that, Liz. Would we ask them what kind of training that they would want to be successful in this whole process?
They get that down. What kind of training? Grant monitoring.
Yeah. I mean, this is a whole process. What kind of training would they consider useful to prepare for monitoring, to prepare for the pre-monitoring, to go through the on-site and how to handle corrective action? So, I mean, I could see at every stage there's some training component.
Okay.
You feel most comfortable with wanting for you to be successful.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Got it. Another good section.
I'll just add to that. This is Greg from Iowa. Back when we had our monitoring done, I think we knew almost a year ahead of time that we were going to get monitored, so we were able to contact NASCSP and came out to our state and went through our information with us ahead of time, helped us prepare, so get time to schedule that and have that meeting and get those our documents and stuff in order and looked at. So it was very helpful.
I think that would be perfect for a focus group question, so we can hear from states like you. And we had NASCSP has, but we didn't probably have as in-depth training. But to see, what is the best approach, and if we need additional training with these new tools, that would be a good topic. But I know what you guys think.
Let me ask a question of Jackie. Jackie, does NASCSP have a training program around grant monitoring?
Anything structured, Kay. What we've done for the last few years is we hold a webinar, and we actually had a session at the conference that Chris was a part of that helps states prepare for, and Beverly too, that helps states prepare for the OCS monitoring. But it's a peer-led. So it is, we talk to the states that were recently monitored by OCS, and we have them on a panel to share what their experiences were. How did they prepare for the monitoring? What was the monitoring like while OCS was there? And then the follow-up after. So that's what we've done the last couple of years. And then, as Greg said, states will ask us to come in and help them prepare. But that's done on an individual state basis. It's not, done collectively.
So the question might be, from what Chris and Greg have been saying, is that the question becomes, so would it be useful to have something like that on a regular basis if you're, if in fact you're going to be monitored? Is this something you'd want?
Right, something that's right.
Training.
Okay, yeah, something more structured and organized.
Okay,
yes.
Okay. I didn't know that happened, so that's a good add-on. Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Anything else? Okay. If we're in topics, and we now talked about, we kind of got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 topics, I think. Let me double check. The priority assessment, monitoring tools, the document request, the report template, the timelines, and the training. I think those are kind of the 6 big buckets. Oh, no, and we also have I'm sorry, Matt, I forgot to put in your, the whole purpose kind of monitoring. That's kind of another whole little piece of that anyway. So purpose, kind of 7 buckets, if you will. So the purpose and implementation is what we're talking about. If we have these 7 buckets, I need you to all think about, only pick 3. Which 3 would we go with? You might have something different, but tell me the 3 that you think are the most important. Now you weigh in. So think about it for a minute. Purpose, assessment, monitoring tools, document request, report template, timeliness, and training.
For me, it would be the training. I think somehow building that in could be a catch-all. I think had indicated that there should be some type of training as far as what this monitoring process will look like. I think you can address a lot of the factors in the overall training, some type of structured training tool or training.
So let me be clear. So when I'm asking about what's most important, I mean what's most important in terms of asking the groups at the focus groups. So
okay.
You're assessing that, asking them about the training they need is an important piece for you.
Yeah, because it may be possible that each state will need on different things. They may not all have the same.
Okay, so they're fleshing out more what the differences are. Okay. Yeah. What would be the other 2 things important to you, Alicia? Most important that you'd want feedback. Feedback from your perspective.
Monitoring tool for sure.
Okay.
And that's the only 2 for me that.
Those are the top 2 for you. That's fine.
Yes.
I don't need to stretch it beyond that. So you want to hear if the monitoring tool is useful, and you want to hear what training they'd like. Okay, that's good. Well, at everybody if possible.
This is Chris. Training would be for me, and document
what? The document request list or the report template?
Desk list. That deals with pre-monitoring and monitoring tool.
And tool. Okay, got it. Matt.
This is Greg. Definitely the monitoring tools. I would want those. I'm looking at this as assuming I would be a state that is going to be monitored. I want the tools at a time that they're using. I would definitely want a pre-monitoring request list ahead of time. And then those are for sure the 2, and then I don't know what I would pick for a 3rd.
Okay. And these are the things that you want us to, in the focus groups, to focus on? These things. Okay,
yeah, I was,
got it.
yeah, looking at it as a state that would be monitored soon, yes.
I'm having a little trouble separating out the different elements. So when we say monitoring tools, we're talking about just the documents they bring out.
No, monitoring tools. The tools that there's two of them. The financial monitoring tool, it's sort of that, it's not checklist, but it's the tool that the OCS uses, and then the program tool, the questions and things they ask. Yes.
So the pre-monitoring checklist doesn't count in that?
Document request list is the documents that they're requesting from the grantees to send. So that's then the monitoring tool. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I was kind of thinking those were, because that's part of monitoring. So I guess if that is two separate things, yeah, those two things. And the training. But I don't think timeliness is not necessary because I think Greg's point, that was kind of like the thing that most people brought up. So not asking that would seem like, address the main thing everybody brought up. Okay. I was kind of laboring over choosing three, I guess. Sorry.
Yeah, okay, so the timeliness is clearly going to be an important thing. You're right, I have to tie. And it may be that once we figure out, and I'm not suggesting that we only do three, but given a finite amount of time that you can hold a focus group, you want to spend more time on that, which is a priority, and less time on some of the others. Doesn't mean we can't cover everything. It also means that when we come to timeliness, we can ask about timeliness in terms of each of these elements, too. So ask about timeliness regarding the document request list. How you need, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Who's trying to get in?
Kate, this is Chris. With the ACSI, we got feedback on timeliness, so that's kind of why I didn't go that way. Because we do have some results. So the reporting out, information, what they need as far as what OCS thinks about the timeliness and what they want for their goals. To me, take care of that.
Right,
so
but want to build on what we heard on the ACSI. We do want to build on what we heard from the ACSI, get more information. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm good with that. But I just wanted to give you some on my time behind it.
Yeah. So we heard, we need better timeliness, we need more transparency, we need clarity. Those are kinds of things we can ask in terms of each of these. Is this clearer? Will this provide, these time frames, will this be better, et cetera? You're right. So who I heard from? Beverly.
That might not be on because she said she was having internet problems and was going to be trying to call back in, but it doesn't look like she's done that yet.
Okay, so we don't have Beverly or Lynn, right?
Lauren.
Lauren. Okay. What thoughts, Jackie?
Having a hard time with 4 as well. Definitely from what we hear from states, the document request list, financial and program monitoring tools, the tests, and the training. So 4.
Okay. All right. We haven't heard from, or knowing we haven't heard from Lauren, there seems to be some consensus among all of you on the phone. So that's what I needed to know. It kind of helps us figure out the big buckets. Doesn't mean the other things will be ignored, but I think we've got the big buckets down. Okay. How are we on time? All right, so we got a half hour. So we got the priority documents. We know what we want to learn. So now we think about these focus groups in terms of how we want to organize them, how many we want to have. Do we want to organize them by topic? Do we want to organize them by type of grantee? There's many different ways we can do this. I did mail off to OCS, but did not hear back in terms of is there any guidance that they've gotten from their up. So I'm assuming not. I'm assuming everybody's copacetic with us simply using this as using the clearance that we got for the OCSI to do this follow-up conversations. So I just wanted to put out to you all in terms of any thoughts you have about how to organize the focus groups and how many you think we might need. That in order to get the kinds of information we want, both the in-depth and the breadth of it. Because I guess needs to hear, they need to hear some depth and breadth. Otherwise, we could just talk to the four of you. But since we've got a feedback from, a big chunk of, 45 of the grantees, we might as well get more in-depth from all of them. So any thoughts on the actual focus groups?
Greg, I got a question to start. So what is NASCSP or OCS's expectation or preference in the focus group format? For example, do you think these are all going to be in person, webinars, conference calls? Do you know?
Yes. We can, but since I don't think there's any, there's no money to bring people to, my suspicion is it's going to all have to be on the phone.
Okay.
All have to be some kind of webinar, or maybe we can come up with something where we can, Skype or something. I don't know, but yeah, I don't think it's going to be anything in person. Otherwise, I don't think there's any in-person anything coming up that we can pull everybody at.
Okay. And are you still looking at the 120-day timeline that we taught the first meeting? Okay.
Yeah, and keep that going. If we go over a little, we won't die, but I think we can move this along. Yeah.
All right.
What, 30 days? So, yeah, we still have time.
Yeah. Kate, I like topic-based.
You like
forums or focus groups by topic?
Topic, so we could have, let me be clear, we could have one topic just focusing on priority assessment, one topic that just focuses on monitoring tools, another topic that just focuses on timelines. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me just write down other thoughts.
Enough time, but if we did them by topic, we could do maybe more one, because I do like a small subset of people. It makes more, it makes it for people to talk. If we do have a large group on the line, maybe we could use some, survey tools, like the GoTo webinar, or probably even WebEx has, multiple choice boxes where people can pick things while you're talking, you ask a question, and the data that way as well. But
yeah, let me ask something. When you do focus groups in person, I have 8 to 12 people. I don't go beyond that. On the phone, I'd only want 8 people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I agree.
I can control people on the phone. And I want in-depth information, so I'm not looking for survey, not looking for data. I'm looking for information. I'm looking for comments and thinking, like what we all do. So yeah, they're going to be small groups.
Are you using invitations to these meetings then?
Absolutely. These are not open focus groups. Once we decide how many we want and then we have criteria. Who is it we want to talk to? To everybody, some subset of it. Yep. No, they're all good questions.
Anything else that, you have a lot of expert knowledge and focus groups that you can share with us as we're trying to help you determine, like you said, we're going to invite people, there'd be multiple, phone, 8 people. Anything else that you would like us to know about as we're discussing?
Okay, let's see. What I am assuming. No, they'd be we'd be on the phone. They'd be fairly small. There are pluses and minuses to doing different kinds of things. So we could have people that we know are like-minded. So we could, for instance, just throwing out thoughts, we could have people who we know scored OCS poorly on grant monitoring. We could have people who scored OCS well on grant monitoring, or we could put them together. Or
Kate, what if we had people like the states that just recently went through a monitoring, or those states that haven't been through one in a long time?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's another kind of a bucket. So we know, because I think I gave you all the information, for instance, on the group of 12, the 12 grantees who have been monitored in the last 2-3 years. So that would be one group, right?
About states that have troubled agencies that are maybe lots of TNTA, close to detonation, or they're shutting them down.
Do we have
Jackie, do you have that information by the state?
Not necessarily, no. I mean,
Okay.
we do to some extent, but I don't know if that's something that we'd be able to use.
Okay.
Yeah,
when you're a state with dealing with a crisis, you look at things a little differently.
I'm sure. I'm also not sure if people would want to be named and on a phone because they got agencies and stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know.
guess I'm
That's
different.
true.
I share everything, so.
Yeah, no, not everybody does. So, but I think your first thought about those who have recently been monitored, perhaps those that haven't been recently monitored, that's been 5-10 years or something. Those are two possible groups. And we all people that are being assessed this year, they're about to be monitored. I think there's 5 or 6. Other thoughts?
Jackie, you would know this, but each state runs a little differently. Structure. Some are very centralized, some is decentralized. I know, like in Texas, there's folks working on CSPG all over. Do you have a sense of the structure of a state office to be able to put groups together?
I think we would only be talking to the people who would have responded to the survey, which means it's the state CSPG director.
I know what you're saying, Chris, sort of like where they are in state government. Is that what you're thinking?
Exactly, yeah.
Matter? Why would it matter?
Because our operations, the data we collect, how we would respond to monitoring, and different people we pull. Sometimes, if Beverly was here, it was all on her shoulders, or I think Matt. But in my state, I pull our finance department, our federal reporting department, our quality assurance department. We have different structures internally, and putting the same people together would have a richer conversation.
Okay, you're talking about trying to talk to like just the state and all the people involved in monitoring? Very different thought.
No, all the states that have similar structure. So Michigan has this structure. It's very similar to, let's say, Texas or California or New York, and put those state people together for conversation.
Okay, yes, but we'd only have one person on the phone from each state.
Yeah, CSPG is probably manager or director.
Yeah, like let's just assume it was the 4 of you. Let's say you didn't know all about what we're doing, and I called you and said we're going to do a focus group. You will be on this. How would I'm just trying to understand? How would the difference that you are structured affect or what information you would provide based on what we just said about the monitoring tools, about the document request list, about time frames? How would your structure affect any of that?
The structure affects how documents are pulled, who the documents are pulled from, who manages those documents. Also, when you look at the monitoring tool, it will tell you, as a state, give you input of who the state have to coordinate internally to actually get all the resources together for the monitoring versus the states that only have one person doing it all. So there's a difference in the responses to the questions by your state structure.
Okay, still having a little trouble understanding, but I'm going to assume that that's correct.
Yeah, Kate, I can tell you, like, for example, we do most of the stuff inside of our office with just the 4 or 5 that we have, but we do have a finance office that's separate, and, like, they fill out all the finance reports, they track everything on that side, and we track the grantee side. And, like, I know some offices are even, like Chris's, she mentioned, there's, like, 6 or 7 different people touch monitoring or something else. So if you were going to look at how an office is monitored or how an entity is monitored, you're going to talk to one person in their office, and then you have somebody else different for the other things. So like filling out pre-monitoring checklists and talking about processes is going to be way different for them than me. I'm going to answer 90% of the questions you send me and send most of the information myself. Would be a little bit of a different process. So they might have a different perspective on like how it'll be to give certain information or not. You know, plus might. I can see the point taken on like it could be different for each office and how they respond to the stuff you send.
Okay. So that it sounds like it may affect primarily the request list, and it might primarily affect the monitoring tools. This would be the two things, right?
I think that's probably true.
Okay.
Yep.
So let me ask this. Instead of trying to organize it by structure, which may be a challenge at this point, what if we include questions that talks about that get a different structure, you know, because you're organized differently, you may be organized differently, what effect on these two things? We could play with that. But let's keep that in mind. I'm not away the other idea, I'm just trying to make sure it's all doable. Okay, other thoughts about the structure of the focus groups?
Get it, that might actually even be, like if you look at a state that has 30 entities versus one that has 2 or 3, or dollar figure, you know, probably the way they're set up in their offices is relational to how many entities they have and how much money they have.
Okay, so we could do it by number of entities, dollars, so kind of big, small kind of thing. That probably shows some differences. I could see that might work. And that might, as you say, that might tie to the structure. It might make it easier. Okay. So another possibility, we could do 1 or 2 that are big, 1 or 2 that are small. Okay, that makes sense. And we may be able to, within those, then figure out what the structure might be. Okay, any other thoughts?
I do like the idea of what you mentioned earlier about the state were monitored recently, because they'll probably give you a good idea on what they think can be improved or made better. But then I like thought of also having focus groups for people that haven't been monitored in a while, because they're going to come from the perspective on what they expect or what should be expected. Again, probably 2 different responses. So.
Okay, that would be good. That would be helpful. So we got 2 buckets. So we kind of got 3 buckets. Some of these may overlap, because if we look at those that have recently been monitored, so there's 12, and we could probably come up with 12, 15 of those. Then we can look at who's big and who's small. We can almost split that into 2 groups. So there's that we can cover a couple of these. What else a thought in terms of how they scored grant monitoring or the CSI? Because we know if people scored above or below 70, for instance. Would we want to put folks together at all? And scored grant monitoring. Many who were monitored didn't score at all, so they won't be included. So the idea of making sure we include them. Yeah.
I think people probably scored it based on if they were recently monitored or they weren't monitored in a while. So I think we kind of covered that. So I don't know if I would tie it to the CI score, as we just talked about different ways to kind of get at it.
The other option maybe is to look at tying to regions, maybe for demographic purposes, in terms of maybe their population and region. There's a pattern. I mean, that's a thought. Not saying that we have to consider it, but maybe looking at it from specialists here are assigned in various regions, so that could be one workaround.
Okay, all right. Okay, that possibility. Go back to the ACSI for a minute. So if, in fact, we're trying to get more in-depth information, particularly people who score OCS poorly on grant monitoring, would this be an opportunity to ask more in-depth questions in terms of specifically, and are these new tools, would they address it? Would they now, with these new tools, score us higher? Is there some, my sense is there's some utility to that, because we heard something from them. They gave a low score, but we really don't know that more, and we don't know if what we're presenting meets their concern.
Yeah, I think you would have to get the data out for us, and we would see if the folks that poorly or rated them highly are the states that are just were monitored, or if they were not monitored in a while, and kind of determine because I still think those buckets are more important, and then we would know, we would the groups together that way.
So there's ways to layer this. So if, in fact, I think I hear you saying, let's look at who is recently, the most important thing, take everybody who's recently and those that have not been monitored in a long time. Let's put those in two buckets. Then with those buckets, because that's going to be bigger than one focus group. In those buckets, then let's look at who's big, who's smaller, number of entities, I shouldn't say big, small, but number of entities, down, and also then look at whether they scored OCS poorly or well. We could put those three things together, I think. And then we'll see how many that all is. We're probably talking 3 more focus groups, would be my guess. Because if we have, there's only, 12, 15 that we could say are recently monitored, unless the ones that are out to be monitored haven't been monitored. And the ones that haven't been monitored, that's another, we could, make a number, 10 or so. So we divide 24, 22 into 8, and we're talking 3 groups, I think. Off the top of my head, I'd have to actually, put the names down. But I think that's the criteria for us to be able to at least first cut and see if it makes sense. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm. Sounds good to me. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to just say it one more time so I don't forget. We're going to start with who was recently monitored, who has not been monitored. Within those groups, look at how many they got or the dollar amounts that they get, and divide them that way. And then look at how scored on the ACSI. And that, we'll have to see how that plays out. I mean, can't do it and look at how it plays out. At least look at those 3 things, and then we have some of the other stuff that we could look at, the regions, or once we get the others figured out. I think we can do that and see where we are.
This is on the recently monitored ones. Is there any way that you know if the staff that were monitored are still there? I've just seen a lot of turnover when I go to conferences. So OCS may have monitored an agency or a year ago, and the staff may have already left.
No, Alicia, would you have any way of knowing that?
There would be a possibility by checking with our program specialist, because if there's any significant changes with the staffing pattern or principal, then they do notate that, especially from within the state plan that's submitted.
And we would
be found out.
Yeah, we likely know that at NASCSP as well.
Once we come up with the list, we know the 12 that have been monitored the last 2-3 years. You could who's still there and who's not. I presume why you're asking, Greg, is if they're not there, they may not be as much of a priority to talk to.
Or that, they might not be able to provide as much feedback as we would like.
As we hope. I think that's a very good point, because we would be anticipating getting lots of feedback and only to discover them saying, I have not the foggiest notion. Okay, that's a good point. Other thoughts? Our next bet is to kind of try to pull that together and then look at the list, and then we tweak it and see what makes sense. Because I know talking in hypotheticals until we actually put states and names, it won't be helpful. And obviously I'm including the 4 of you. So we have that, and I think Chris recently monitored, and I think, Matt, you were recently monitored, correct, with the last 2-3 years?
Beverly.
Yeah.
Okay.
2.5 years.
Not, and Iowa has not been, is my understanding, right?
It's been a while.
And I don't think Indiana has either. Is that correct, Alicia? Indiana has not been recently?
No, they have. They have.
They
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so good. So 4 of you at least have been, that's good. Okay. Okay. I think that's on terms of the discussion. Let me see what the next thing was. Only a few minutes. So, thing in terms of some next steps and assignments. It's really kind of just one thing. To get us going and to have all of us sort of participating here is if you each picked one of these priority topics, the monitoring tools, the document request list, the timelines, or the training. Let's pick those 4. And think about questions we would ask in a focus group. So part of the thing is we don't ask yes/no questions. We ask open-ended questions where we get discussion going. And we don't need tons of them, but we need a few in each topic. So if you know right now which topic you might be interested in trying to develop some questions, I want you to then write up those questions. We'll share it with everybody, and then we can discuss it at our next meeting. When I get sort of your thoughts, I'm glad to put it into a script. I know how to do the script for all of this, and then we can tweak that or look at it. And in the meantime, I can work on coming up with this list of grantees. Based on the criteria you've just come up with, we'll kind of play with that so we have something to look at. In terms of 2 next steps, list of grantees, you all coming up with some questions. I'm not expecting you to spend, longer than half an hour on this, but, what questions, what are things we need to know on those specific topics? So who to cover the document request list?
I can.
Yep.
Sure.
The tool, the financial monitoring tool, I guess.
This I'll work on tools.
Okay, got tools. Chris, what do you want to work on? There's training and timeline left.
Either one, I don't care. Just assign me. Whatever one you need me to do.
Let's training, because I think that was your idea to start with. So you have some thoughts on that. That'll be good.
Okay.
And I think you only 3 left on the phone. So I'll see and get a hold of Beverly and see if she can handle the timeline questions. Okay, so that's the last thing we need to figure out our meeting schedule. So we have continuing to be good. I just want to figure out kind of our next 3 meetings. Do you all think you need a week? Do you want 2 weeks? When our next? I think we're kind of on a roll here, so I just assume we can move along. I also, you guys are busy folks, so what looks good in terms of meetings? Ooh.
This if the main thing is to work on the questions and to talk about that at the next meeting, and you just want the meeting to an hour, I think next week's fine for me.
Okay.
I'm doing a training on the 18th, so I'm not around that day. But
yeah, I'm in a commission meeting.
Let's not play with that. What about? And still the only good days, right? What else?
Yeah, at conference, I'd be flying home. I could try to jump on call if I can.
Do it in the afternoon?
Have a webinar from 2 to 3:30, but then I was told that that's the Friday before Memorial Day weekend.
Oh,
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. Okay, all right, so I'm not going to spend time. I was hoping it was going to be a fast decision here. Let's do this. Jackie, let's you and I talk, and maybe we can send out some request things and try to find 3 more meetings, because I think we need the next meeting to talk about the questions, to talk about the grantee list, then kind of formulate the who, what, when, the roles, the dates, the script, that kind of thing. Need at least 2 more meetings. I just assume have 3 set. So I know it's hard to get everybody. So just look out, guys. In the next, early next week, we'll send out and try to come up with 3 dates. We'll try to stick to Fridays. If we can't do Fridays, what's the next best date? Is it Monday?
Mhm. Is that okay?
Right now. Mhm.
Usually I find Mondays are better than the middle of the week. Okay, if we can't get some Fridays, which look like they're getting difficult, we'll start aiming for some Mondays. But you've got at least a week to get your questions, and let's just share them, send emails out to the whole team in terms of what thoughts you have. And don't about them if they're not, in perfect, just get the idea, the concept down. We can perfect the question. But we want to know, what is it we want to know? What are the things we want to ask? And keep in mind, if we're breaking the groups into 2 different groups, those have been recently monitored and those that have not, you might have the questions be slightly different. So keep that in mind. But again, if you get that down, we can deal with that later. Am I making any sense?
Yep.
Oh, great. I think then we're done. I don't like to keep us over. So what I've got is Matt's going to do the document request list. Greg's doing monitoring tools. Chris is going to do the training. I'm going to talk to Beverly about the timelines. And Jackie and I will deal with the grantee list in terms of the focus groups. And Jackie and I will try to figure out some next meeting times. To do it, I hope you all have a really nice weekend. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Kate.
See you later.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.